Anthony D is with us here live, and he says, with Janie Engel being interviewed after 20 plus years away from the business, would you like to see her again or extend her an invitation to an AEW show?
Yeah, I'd love to see Janie again. We've texted back and forth a little bit, not on a regular basis, but Janie was a good person. Well, is a good person, and she not only worked for us and was Eric Bischoff's executive producer, but she worked for the Hogan family after WCW went out of business. So very well respected in the business.
Rajiv was talking earlier today. You were going on a little ramble, a rant, if you will.
Yeah.
About how yes, there were stars that were successful in WCW that were made in the WWF, but it's
Right.
important that a promotion grow their own stars. And Rajiv had a follow up to that. He says, "What is Tony's definition of a star? It's different for a lot of people."
Yeah. Well, to me, it's I guess, and this is a double edged sword. I guess you could take a look at ratings, and we do minute by minutes, and you could say, okay, that person is. Oh, we talked over just a sensational match here, didn't we? There's Nick Patrick on all fours, ready to be mounted, and Mick Foley's walking behind him.
Here's what Meltzer said: short enough that it wasn't that bad, but in hindsight, there was no reason for it.
No, no. Well, you know what? It's not the first time there's been a match where there's been no reason for it.
I saw several last week.
Yeah. Where?
I'm not going to say where.
Okay. Hey, girl.
The first match got 2.5 stars. The second match didn't even get a rating. But coming up next, we've got APA taking on Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo in a non-title match. It's the tag champs from the WWF taking on the tag champs from WCW. Any more thoughts about a star?
Oh, yes. So you can do minute by minutes, and I guess there's a lot. We have a lot of people out there that look at that and study that and say, okay, the ratings went up when this person was on, or the ratings went down when this person was on. It's a very inaccurate science, I do believe. But another way to do it is reaction by the fans. And I think that tells a lot too. And obviously, MJF gets a gigantic reaction. Orange Cassidy gets a gigantic reaction. The Acclaimed get a gigantic reaction. Of course, people love their rap. Whatever it is, when you get a big reaction from the fans, I think it means you're either going to be a star or you are a star. Now, on what level? I don't know. I really don't know what that is. What the hell are we watching now?
This is a promo for Tough Enough, which is a television program, the reality show they were doing on MTV in this era, where one person was going to win a WWE contract.
Well,
You saw Chris Nowinski, who's done a lot of work with CTE.
right. I've seen
You
Chris.
actually got to meet him at
Mhm.
one of our events before. Maven was there and a few others. This show, as you're seeing from the sign there, completely sold out. And I mean, all the way.
Mhm.
We had an incredible amount of fans there, 17,019 fans.
Mhm.
15,535 of them paid $848,000 and another 146K in merch sales. They sold 775,000 pay-per-views. This is their second biggest pay-per-view of the year by far, trailing only WrestleMania, which was the biggest WrestleMania of all time. But to add some context here in 2001, things are a-changing. The WWF launched the XFL, and it failed miserably. And it was a big stress factor on the team because they were all stretched too thin. ECW filed for bankruptcy. Vince bought it out. He did a backdoor deal with the powers that be at Turner to buy WCW for pennies.
Mhm.
And then he had the biggest WrestleMania of all time. And at the end of that WrestleMania, he decided he was tired of making money. And he turned Stone Cold Steve Austin heel, and it fell off a cliff, and they never recovered. They gave the company one last chance with this pay-per-view, and they never came back. This story had been gifted to them forever, and they limped along through
Yeah.
November and then shut it down. And the day after the invasion was finished, Ric Flair debuts. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have him be a part of the invasion?
Yeah.
Be careful with that logic. And of course, we just couldn't afford to bring in Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. That didn't make any sense. They were getting paid to sit home. But 4 months after the invasion was over, oh, here they are debuting on pay-per-view. Wouldn't the NWO, led by Eric Bischoff, have made more sense if we were really doing an invasion? There's so much about this that makes no sense.
Well, let me interrupt here and tell you this, that it's like I've said, and it's like I say to a lot of people backstage. If you walk around worrying about logic when it comes to pro wrestling, and there's a lot of things that happen backstage and a lot of angles that we all go, is that really going to work? Do you think it's going to work? And I go, who gives a shit? Don't try to bring your logic into pro wrestling because it ain't going to work. Everybody's got a different logic and there's so many different things. There's so many variables. If you think that a match in AEW, and I'm sure even in the WWE, happens because of one guy comes up with this idea, you're wrong. Everybody gets involved. All the wrestlers get involved. They have their input. And writers that we have now and people who work in creative have an input. And Tony has the final say. And so don't try, Conrad, to say logic should enter into this. Here's the only logic that I know. All right. Vince hated WCW so badly. He wanted to crash and burn and then bring in the big stars later, I think, to make WWE even bigger. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my thought. Now, we got Chuck Palumbo coming out and Sean O'Hara coming out. WCW, right? But not a Ric Flair WCW, who was a standard bearer for WCW forever, right? And oh, by the way, let's rewind back to 1990 and let's put polka dots on Dusty Rhodes. So there.
What's been representing WCW so far is Lance Storm, Mike Awesome, Nick Patrick, and now Sean O'Hare and Chuck Palumbo. I got to tell you, I was when I was watching this is before I really understood that UFC phrase that I've gone on to adopt and use it for wrestling. Styles make fights. And I thought, man, we got two big brawlers. We got Palumbo and O'Hare. This would be a good match.
Right.
It's not terrible, but it's not great. Meltzer would say, for what in another era would have been such an important deal, this was really nothing. 1 star. But I was convinced that Sean O'Hare was going to be a top guy.
Really?
I thought, well, he's just starting here as a tag team. But you wait. This dude's like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", something like that. Jacked, got the cool tattoos, got the crazy hair. He's doing swantons off the top. This is like the WCW version of Mike Awesome. And boy, that just never really worked out.
Yeah.